All right, and we are live. This is the last Council of Regents meeting for this reign, and I guess we'll see each other or see everyone at Wolf's Cry too, so that'll be super exciting. We have a pretty short agenda here. First thing that we had on the list was just kind of following up on, kind of our biggest project that we'd sort of been working on and off throughout the reign, which was Regent kits. So let me pull up the Google Drive here and take a look at the Regents kit wish list. So I think what we had decided on was Midnight Sun had gone through and done a whole bunch of work, finding a bunch of stuff that made sense for her park. And we had all kind of looked at that and we're like, yep, that seems like a pretty close thing, and asked folks to add anything special that they might think would be important for them, outside of what Midnight Sun had come up with. Looking at Midnight Sun's tally, it comes out to around $500. Does that do the three you have access to this thing that I'm talking about rather? Excuse me.
Yes.
Is that That's in the Northreach Gmail thing, right? Because I could probably look at it.
Yeah, I think, let me see if I can grab a link really fast, because I think it's set. I'll just post it in our Facebook chat here really quickly.
So if I may just point something out as far as about this wish list.
Go for it.
I feel like Midnight Sun has pretty much covered all of the basics just about. And then anything additional, more or less, I feel like that's going to vary based on the incoming regents and future regents. I mean, if they want to do anything special, but I feel like the basics of sewing machine and basic sewing materials and stuff and crafting stuff to make A&S function is kind of a necessity in every park.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. Do you think that there's anything in particular that should be added or removed from that list? Or does anyone, I guess? Okay, so I was trying to dig through.
I'm actually going over the list myself right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was trying to dig through the drive right now and take a look at the budget.
I'm seeing the cost of stuff, but I'm not seeing how to look at the specific items on the list.
Are you looking at it on mobile?
I believe you have to go over to the Ravenstone tab.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry. So you're probably looking at the info tab, Wisteria.
Found it.
I would
That
say
looks about right, but maybe add cutting mats to it for if you're cutting fabric with a rotating fabric cutter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's see. So I'm looking at like discretionary budgets and stuff like that for the different parks to kind of figure out, you know, the easiest way to pay for this. I don't think it's going to be something that we can like get done before Saturday or whatever, get all the money, like the things bought or whatever. But if we can basically plan it all out for the next, like the incoming folks, and say like, here's how much money you're going to have. You can buy this much of it, you know, like this month and this much this month, then that would pretty much make it, you know, that would make it easy.
In all honesty, if we look at like a lot of the stuff on the budget, at least the main bulk cost in the sewing machine is generally going to be a one-time cost, and maybe have to get bought again in like a couple of years. But if the sewing machines are taken care of, they should last a couple years.
Yeah, I totally agree. So a lot of this is going to be a lump sum thing, and then, you know, over the course of the next however many years, just the next region councils paying attention to like how their region kids are doing, and making sure that they get the money they need each reign to keep them where they need to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that was all I had. Another thing, maybe if we're this last meeting would probably be a really good thing to hand off to our upcoming regions, and maybe make a list of a couple suggestions to them going forward of some things to keep pushing, like this wish list, for example, because it is something that's going to have to be maintained by future regions, and eventually it could die off or it could keep growing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. And in fact, let me just add that to the agenda real quick, where we'll do like a little section at the end where we'll say like handoffs to the next like council. Incoming council handoffs. So, if we look at that, at the cost of that, where'd it go? There it is, which is about $500, which, you know, like you guys pointed out, $200 of that, the largest like single lump sum, is the sewing machine. Looking at like the budget drafts that have been submitted by the different parks, Icefire Bay had like an operational budget of $700, and you would have to talk to, you know, your like, you have to work with the Monarch to figure out like, has that been spent, like what's it's been spent on, and so on and so forth. Astral Winds had $200 set aside for like the champions fee, which, you know, realistically this stuff could be spent on that too, because it's kind of the same deal. Loop Moon had a discretionary budget of $300. You know, and it's all of this is aside from money that is specifically marked for mid-reigns and stuff like that. So these discretionary budgets are for your champions and your regions to be able to put together kits like this. Ravenstone had $240 each month for discretionary. So it looks like all of the parks. Sorry, go ahead, Josh. What do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say that's definitely something that I'm personally going to want to explain to like whoever. I guess it's going to be Karen taking my place. Is a lot of the budget things this year posed, at least for me, a couple problems, but it was only for my lack of understanding of the budget, which is just something I needed to educate myself on. But it's definitely something that future regions and champions, for that matter, need to be educated on.
Yeah, I mean, totally. You know, I think one of the recommendations that I would have for the incoming regions is if we can take a look at the amount of money, like just looking at the budget drafts that have been put together, you know, the different parks submitted where they said Frozen Coast had said, you know, $250 for summer discretionary spending and $250 for winter discretionary spending. You know, I think we should include in our recommendations for the incoming regents to say like, okay, you know, last time around, this is how much you guys got in discretionary spending. Our suggestion to you, incoming, you know, Lubin Moon regent, would be that you, when your team is planning out how much you're going to need for each of those budgets, you say like, I need $300 for the first reign so that I can buy the sewing machine and some of the basics, and then the next one's going to need $200 to be able to buy everything else, and then we'll be done, you know, in one like kingdom reign or however you want to do it. But I think if we can tell the incoming regents that, like, give them a number that they just need to request, I think that will make it really, really easy for them. Does that sound good to you guys?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So looking at this, if we're going to go off that $500 number, let's see, let's start at the top. Astral Winds, they requested a champions and administration fee that were like separate, totaling $400 for the entire kingdom reign. There was no other like discretionary spending thing. There was just a line item for mid reign. So I think that I don't know how much of that admin fee has been used. My assumption is that was for things like just like office supplies, essentially, that the park needs to operate, like papers for awards and so on and so forth. So I think that we could recommend, like, if they're already or used to requesting a champions fee of $200, my suggestion for the Astral Winds incoming people would be that we tell them to request $250 for, you know, the winter reign and $250 for the summer reign, essentially.
I know that understanding the mid-range budget posed a little bit of a challenge for me because I wasn't under the understanding before that the mid-range budget, although our budget was $300 for mid-range, it actually was supposed to be a net even. So the way that worked, I didn't fully understand, and I eventually got explained to it, and we made it up. But I guess that's another thing to explain to the incoming regents is about kind of how that mid-range budget works and why that, you know, the amount actually allotted for mid-range is more it's equal to what's expected to be made back, and that part I didn't understand.
Okay, cool. I just added to the agenda, or to the minutes, essentially, that handoff in there. I said mid-range budgets, that they're supposed to break even. You have an amount that you're allotted to pay for it, but you are generally expected to charge for mid-range to make up for that same amount. Does that sound about like what you were trying to capture?
Perfect.
Cool. We'll make sure we hand that off to them. So Astral Winds previously had $400 discretionary for the entire reign. My recommendation for their regent that's coming in, Delhi, is going to be that you know, he essentially requests $250 each reign, which I think they'll be able to get pretty easily, and then use that to buy the difficult stuff, and then, you know, patchwork the rest in, or set the rest up for the next region. Midnight Sun, who's the incoming regent in Ravenstone?
That would be
Gideon, cool. So it looks like last year you guys requested $240 each reign for discretionary. I think I don't know how much of that was used for Regent stuff. I assume probably very little. I would guess that most of it was probably used for like battle games, like champion things. So that is that accurate?
It depends. Like, I didn't really have to use much for the Regent bin because I had donated a lot of stuff to the bin already. So, I mean, even this rain, we barely even touched the discretionary fund.
Okay. So do you think that you would need to request the full $500 to fill in the Ravenstone Regent kit, or do you think that you've got enough stuff in there that you could take less each rain and be okay? Like it sounds like you need 200 to buy a sewing machine, probably, right?
Yes, we don't have one, and we may have to request that 500 because the Regent bin is not. There's not much stuff left in there currently.
Okay. Do you want to? So I'm going to put in here that the full 500 needs to be requested. And, you know, I think our suggestion, I'll put in here that they had requested 240 each rain discretionary, but that was combined for the champion and the regent. And we'll just put in here as a recommendation for Gideon that he's going to need the full 500. And basically the same suggestion for Astral Winds is try to get 250 committed to that project for each rain during the initial budgeting thing. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds good.
All right, Josh, how are you? Do you have anything like for the Regents kit in Loop and Moon right now, or are you guys basically starting from scratch as well?
I mean, there's some, miscellaneous fabric that's already in a bin. Like, there's a good amount of miscellaneous fabric. It's not organized at all. But the sewing machine is mine that has been being used, and then a couple people have occasionally brought their own, but we don't have a local sewing machine. And literally just about everything as far as sewing material goes is mine, so we'd pretty much be starting over.
Okay, cool. So it looks like last year Loop and Moon had a discretionary budget of $300 total. Although they had a separate PM budget, which would sort of be similar to Astral Winds and, Astral Winds, like admin fee and so on and so forth. So I don't see awards and printing $200. Bunch of site fees, mid-rain. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that it would probably, like, it might be a little bit tighter for you guys, just based on how much you've requested in the past, because it doesn't look like you have requested a lot of discretionary money for your champions and regents.
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't feel that we have quite the ANS turnout in Loop and Moon. A lot of the people that do craft already craft at home and buy the materials. That being said, I would much like to see that changed, but I'm not necessarily going to be the one in charge of that change. So I certainly don't want to screw over incoming Regent Karen, but I don't know how much is going to actually be able to be used.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks like I'm gonna mention in here that there was also $100 set aside specifically for the PM. I'm just trying to kind of like collect our thoughts on these, like a little bit of analysis on like what they had requested previously. So for Loop and Moon, what I'm gonna write in here is that previously there'd been a $300 discretionary budget for the entire reign, which appears to have been like theoretically marked to be split between the champion and the regent, but maybe wasn't used. And there was an additional $100 requested specifically for PMs, for PM use. So just to kind of like give them an idea of like, here's what you guys got last time. Here's what you should request this year so that you can use it for this. And I think that'll make the incoming regent's job a lot easier. We don't, sorry, I was just typing furiously. Frozen Coast, I don't know. I don't know what the status of their stuff is. I do know that they had requested $250 discretionary for spring or for summer and $250 for winter. So they're at least used to doing that. But I have no idea what the state of their current region kit is, if anything. So I'll just mark in here what they had requested last year and tell them to work within that essentially, or keep it in mind as they request, what they need specifically for this project next year. Okay, Ice Fire Bay. You had an operations budget was the only item on here. You had a site fee of $1,000 and an operations budget of $700. Do you know, like, what, if anything, you guys use that money for?
My guess would probably be paying for the site fee. Not totally sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, at least it looks like you guys have been budgeted that money in the past. So, I mean, that comes out to $350 a reign for discretionary use, which would, if you requested that same amount, I don't know how much of it was actually used last year, but if you requested that same amount, with 250 set aside each reign specifically for the Regents kit, would still leave $100 for your champion. Each reign, do you feel like your champion uses $100 a reign on battle game stuff?
I think he gets supplies to make weapons, so he probably does use a good portion of that.
Okay. Do you think it's more than like $100 each reign, probably?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask him about that.
Okay. I mean, makes sense. Like, we'll break it down I'll break it down a little bit in the note that or the suggestion that we'll make for the Icefire Bay one. That, here's kind of some assumptions that we're making, and here's what we suggest. While I am doing that, the next item that I had, or first of all, did anyone want to mention anything else about the Regents kits before we moved on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, cool. So next item on the agenda was calendars. So while I'm kind of finishing typing this up, what I was going to suggest maybe is that everyone take like 60 seconds to look at the calendar for the coming rain. I know that like things like your ANS might change or whatever, but just like why doesn't everyone like pop into the calendar real quick for the coming rain and like make sure that stuff is set up at least for the next like month or so that the incoming regions don't have to have a bunch of work to do on like day one of their reign. And that'll give me an opportunity to like finish typing this up. That'll carry over for our next regions. Does that sound good?
I actually need another link sent to me for the calendar to log, or the login information actually, because I have a new phone and haven't logged in on this new phone.
Oh, sure. Let me, I'll post the username and password in the Regents chat.
I'm actually going to get in there tonight and make sure the calendar is set up at least for 1 or 2 months ahead.
Okay, cool. That'll work too. I didn't ask. Wisteria, does Icefire Bay actually have anything in their existing Regents kit that would like make it so you need less than the full $500?
There is a sewing machine. There's a bunch of random craft stuff like paint and fabric decoration stuff, and I think the problem is that we have a bunch of it, but we don't have like a lot of it. So, we kind of do have everything, but we just need more of some of the stuff.
Okay, but you already have a decent sewing machine. Like, could we knock off the $200 price tag of a sewing machine from your bill?
You can remove that $200 price tag because we have a machine.
Sweet. That makes it super easy then for the incoming region. That's awesome. Okay. How are the calendars looking for folks?
It's gonna take me a minute to actually get into my calendar and get it all set up, but I'll get it taken care of tonight.
Okay, cool. Works for me. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through really quickly to make sure there's nothing terrifying listed in here for Northreach as well, so that Shelby doesn't have too much catch up to do. Okay, looks okay. Okay, so the next thing on the list here was Wolf's Cry. And so I made a post in there a little bit ago asking if, we could get together or find folks that could help just sort of arrange things for Feast, essentially like get the tables and chairs in the right place, get the decorations like put up and so on and so forth. Like I know I'll be there and ready to help do that, but how do you who all is going to be there? Do you guys think you'll be able to help with that for like, I don't know, probably a half hour or an hour or so before Feast, or have people like extra hands that'll make it go faster?
I can talk to Nalarian since I'm in surf and see if I can take time to help out with that.
Yeah, I'm sure I can set some time aside to help out.
Let me actually take a look at the schedule for the event and see what is happening in like the hour preceding the Feast, because that's probably important to know. Because if it's tournaments, I'm going to be really sad.
Kind of hope it's not tournaments too, or battle games.
Yeah, I mean, sort of with as packed as the schedule is, it's got to be during something, you know what I mean? Let's see, Saturday, boom, 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 Feast starts, Tavern opens. Actually, no, like it's pretty okay. The last battle game's at 4, and the Assassins game ends at 4. The Alpha Wolf tournament starts at 2, but I assume that it'll be done before the battle game starts. So anyway, battle game at 4 o'clock, Assassin's game ends. Tavern opens at 5, Feast starts at 6. So that doesn't seem too bad.
So what, you need our help around like 5?
Yeah, I'm thinking so. I mean, it'll be tough to know exactly how things are going to go down until we're there, because it's an event and what can go wrong will go wrong, But yeah, I mean, 5 seems okay. Are all 3 of you guys going to be there?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be there, and I'll definitely do my best to help if I get there, but I'm pretty sure I'm going.
Sweet. Okay, cool. That just leaves talking about like handoffs for the incoming regents. So what I have in here right now is all of the suggestions that I have for the regents kits, talking about budgeting going into their next reign and what we suggest that they request. And additionally, the mid-reign budgets, calling out specifically that they're supposed to break even. You have an amount that you're allotted, but you're expected to charge for mid-reign to make up for that amount, at least. Is there anything else that you think like you were confused by as a regent, or that you wish that you had known, sort of like something you wish someone had told you before you got into it type of deal?
Just start planning for your crown quals and mid reign. Like it's the biggest thing that you have to take care of. So start planning for it as soon as you can.
Yeah, definitely doing a lot of mid-reign planning ahead of time.
Okay. Like anything specific, like, like you should, mid-reigns on this day, and like you should really, like, here's where I did mid-reign last time. It worked out super well. You should call them a week in advance, like that kind of stuff that you want to pass off to like the person that's gonna be replacing you specifically.
I specifically would advise to incoming summer term region, which is not this upcoming term. This upcoming is winter. Um, for winter indoor place, we had Denny's in Anchorage, and that probably would be perfect for a winter mid-rain also, depending on how many people. But we almost came to the point where we were going to do it outside. If we would have waited like one more weekend, we would have been doing it outside. So for a regent planning a mid-reign in the summer, it really matters when, like in May, at least for Anchorage, you plan that mid-reign. If it's in the beginning of May, it might be indoors, but if you're planning it more toward the end of May, it's probably more likely you're going to be outdoors. So just kind of keep that in mind, because it made for me having to basically change my venue from outside to inside um, pretty expeditiously.
Okay, cool. So you said Denny's is what you would use for indoors, and then when you were outdoors, did you just do it at the normal park site?
Yeah, for outdoors, it would have been at the park site, but that requires, a completely different setup. As far as outdoors, you got to prepare for tents and, shade and having everything all set up to be outdoors. Whereas indoors can be a little more simple, especially if the venue's already set up for you.
Okay, cool. Ravenstone, what about you? I'm sorry. I think a lot of that advice is probably super applicable to the winter folks too. When you had worked with Denny's, like, how did you get a hold of somebody like there to make that reservation, Josh?
I just went in and asked to speak with the manager, and the manager's name is AJ. He's Because AmpGuard has had a number of dealings with this particular Denny's right down the road from our park. Um, he already knew the organization I was talking about and made it pretty easy, straightforward going forward, and he was immediately willing to work with me. So I would say a lot of the groundwork as far as establishing association for me was already done with that particular Denny's, but I think most Denny's, just going to them, or any restaurant, I imagine for that matter, would just be, going to the management and kind of explaining to them what we are. And a lot of, I think, restaurants and groups are going to be, gung ho about any large party group wanting to rent out a space for several hours.
All right, sweet. Midnight Sun, what suggestions do you have for your incoming monarch or regent? Excuse me.
Besides, all the other points about planning for mid reign, one of the suggestions I'd advise is, have really good communication with your other top five, because they have some really good insight as far as needing, ideas for, your ANSs and really talking with the public, to see what they're looking for.
Super awesome advice. I love the idea of the regent working with the champion, for example, to like sort of push things in ANS that are going to be helpful or fun or will make whatever the rain theme is better or that sort of thing. So yeah, that's super duper awesome advice. So what I wrote down is basically mid-rain planning, follow the same advice that Lupa Moon had. Which is like be flexible, pay attention to that timing, and so on and so forth. And then I also said like have good communication with the other top five. They have good ideas for things that you could push in ANS that will make their jobs easier, quests more successful, and so on. Does that sound about right?
I would say so. I mean, I've gone in the past, especially this rain, I've gone and talked with the populace to know, what are they looking for, what are they expecting to come out of the region, and I really try to accommodate, what they're needing.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I just added in here, talk to the populace, ask them what they're looking for and what they expect from you, and then try to accommodate that. Anything else you wanna pass off to your replacement?
No, I think that just about covers it.
All right. Stereo, what do you got? Anything that you like down in Icefire Bay really bumped into? Like, what did you guys do for mid-rain? How did, et cetera, et cetera?
Essentially the good locations for indoor events would be like the Badarka Inn or Noiseland, which is where we had our mid-rain this last rain, and outdoor events usually Karen Hornaday Park or the Bishop's Beach Pavilion. And we're trying to make it regular that we're trying to have a regular float in the Winter Carnival and 4th of July parades. So that's about it.
Okay, sorry, I was typing furiously. I guarantee you that I misspelled some of these because I was just kind of furiously trying to keep up with you as you were rattling off parks and beach pavilions and so on and so forth. But that's okay. I think that whoever takes over will figure it out. But what I wrote in here was the suggestions that you had for your indoor events, the suggestions for outdoor events, and that it was important that you guys had or that you want to have a regular float in both the Winter Carnival and 4th of July parades. Who like has the float?
Someone in the Shire, I don't remember who, has a like wooden Tolman skiff that we decorated for the parade, and our Prime Minister has most of the stuff that goes with it for the decorations.
Who's your PM this rain?
Our PM's Hazel.
Okay, cool. So that is all. Hold on, sorry, I have my phone is ringing. Okay. Cool. So anything else like overarching that you guys want to pass off to the incoming regents or whatever? Just general advice for officers.
Pretty much just regularly check in with the other officers that you have and work with them for events?
I'd point out a key role that I don't know that our meetings have covered so much, but I've found that it was at least a role I took up highly during my reign, and that's being like your right-hand helper to your monarch, because I know my monarch had a lot of stuff on his plate, and just being an extra set of eyes for your monarch and looking out for the same things that he would be and letting him know, I know that he's thanked me half a dozen times for it. So that's just something that I think every region should kind of push to do, is since regents are kind of the only officer that doesn't directly have a duty at games, we have the opportunity to, be that extra set of eyes for the top 5 that's just observing everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wrote all that down. How about, is there anything that you want to tell the incoming Kingdom Regent that they should really do, like, that you think is important, that worked well or whatever, or didn't, or you want more of or less of, or you think would be better for the incoming people?
Constantly remind your regents of meetings.
Okay, fair.
I know we all have a terrible habit of forgetting.
Yeah. I definitely think, like, the reminders and, like, the Facebook chat thing were the most effective. I couldn't hear you at all, Midnight Sun. You were really quiet.
Sorry about that. I'm a little bit losing my voice. Communication, like if you're struggling with something, I mean, bring it to the other region's attention. Maybe they can answer something that you're struggling with.
Okay, cool. Anything anyone else wants to add for the Kingdom region, or just like the group as a whole that's coming in? Okay, sweet. How about just really quickly, I'm assuming, because there's probably not going to be a whole lot, but let's do local updates, things that you maybe, and think closely about things you think is probably important for your next region that's going to be stepping in next week, essentially, to think of. So Ravenstone, what do you have for local updates?
Honestly, I can't really think of anything that's been happening or whatnot. Only thing I could suggest is just try not to stress too much.
That's such good advice, though. That's such good advice. Okay. Loop Moon, anything like local going on that you think the next region needs to know about?
Not necessarily like as far as events go, but I guess the only suggestion I can have is the ANS locations that have been set up are, I would say, easiest kept if we jump right on rebooking them, because they're both venues. Joanne's Fabrics is one of them that I'm doing a month, and then the BP Energy Center is another one, and they both fill up pretty quickly with other groups wanting to rent out the space. So if the regent is interested, incoming regent and future regents, I suggest that they jump on trying to book either one of those venues, or any other venue for that matter, as quickly as possible, because venues like that tend to fill up pretty quickly.
Totally. In fact, I'm gonna move that up into the incoming council handoff specifically for Loop and Moon, because you gave details about Joanne's and the BP Energy Center and stuff like that. Because I think that's important for them to be like, oh, okay, this is something that I need to pay attention to specifically. Okay, cool. Anything else local going on?
Not really that I can think of. I guess the state fair, but that's even more of a Ravenstone kind of event, or Kingdom event. No, I can't think of anything directly with the Moon.
Okay. Icefire Bay, you have any local things to hand off or mention?
I don't think so.
Well, all right. We actually did a pretty dang good job. We have 2 pages of notes in here, and we stuck it to 1 hour on the nose almost. Killed it. Well, unless anyone has anything else, I think we are done, and we will hopefully see everyone at Wolf's Cry. It'll be a super duper awesome time. I'll catch you all later.
See you guys all at Wolf's Cry.
Wolf Cry as well.